Sue and Mark from Our Journey in Myles, and we're here at National Indoor RV Center in Lawrenceville, Georgia, right by Atlanta. This is where we had our lithium battery project done, and we've been getting a lot of questions on the price. We're gonna talk about that in this video, but the main thing is we're going to get together with Justin, who kind of organized and oversaw everything that was done with our project. He's been getting questions on quotes, and it's a complicated question.
So if you're new to the channel, I think before you make the commitment to watch this video, you might want to consider watching parts of part 1, 2, or 3. You can see on screen here, it's the subject matter of each that might be of interest, and I think it'll help you to better appreciate why our installation, as complete as it was and as high caliber as it was, ended up costing $35,000. So take a look at those, sit back and enjoy, and we'll try to wrap up our lithium install on our 2014 Newmar Dutch Star that we live in full time. So today's the big day. You want to know what the big day is? We're at National Indoor RV in Atlanta. Don't fall over the cone, honey. And we were able to snag Justin Townley, who's going to spend maybe an hour with us talking about what a person needs to prepare in terms of information and describing their rig if they in fact are thinking about getting a quote from National Indoor to do their lithium project. Sue and I did not sit down to record our reasons why we had chosen to spend the money to put lithium in when in fact we aren't boondockers. But the short version is that we just got sick and tired of the silliness of AGM Batteries pretending that they're up to the task of running, even in a little smidgen of time, a 50 amp coach. Remember, a 50 amp coach really is 100 amps of capacity. So when it came time to put new batteries in, we just cut to the chase because we truly are full-timers, and this is still a full-time endeavor for us. So if you stop here, Sue, and keep your hand around, in the back here, I think up there in one of the conference rooms, we're going to snag poor Justin. I prepared some questions, and I'm going to try to lead the conversation a little bit, but we're not trying to put him on the spot. But then again, we don't want to be one of those channels where we show you what we have and then we don't tell you what it's going to cost.
Yeah.
It costs a lot. It's kind of a commitment. You can save money by putting, less and less quality components in. You can actually get to the point where you're kind of putting things in that are inferior and possibly even unsafe. We didn't even consider that.
Yeah.
So you know what, Sue? Let's get going.
Yeah, let me just put in a point.
Oh. Okay, Sue.
So,
give a point.
Rather than cutting you off. So the point for talking to Justin is they get a lot of calls, people wanting to know what does it cost. It's all over the place. Yep. What kind of rig do you have? What are you trying to get out of it? How much? How big? How little? It really depends. So it's been really challenging for him to quote unless he got a lot of details. So hopefully we'll get a lot more detail on things to consider as far as when you start getting your quote.
Right, and I do have a little clip that I'm going to hopefully include in this video where one day we were out here and our good friend that we stay with every time we're in Atlanta, Bob and Joy, I actually did a little clip where I showed how different his rig was configured and how literally everything that you saw in our videos when we did our installation, everything's completely different.
All right, let's go.
Hey, wait a second. Do you have a YouTube channel?
No, I just going to show you.
Oh, okay, no. This is what you do, hanging around. You got to put a microphone on you. You are officially.
Now I'm a YouTuber.
You are officially YouTube challenged right now. Do we see 2 microphones on there? You should.
Yes, I do.
So
Okay.
I have to be careful what I say because.
No swearing. Yes.
You know what that one is?
What?
That's
Oh
the
yeah.
one, that's the
That's
one
a BIM.
Yeah.
This is a LIBIM. And this is what I'm having some slight problems with now in our installation. And I see you have a slight problem with your...
Yeah, that one's been like that.
Yeah, you can silicone that
Yeah.
on or something.
Didn't mean to do that, but we got in the road.
Yeah, but see, yours is at least easy to take care of. See? And you could literally buy another one of those and just literally have it laying there when it goes bad on you, you know? Mine, you got to be a contortionist to get it. But what I wanted to show you Bob's rig, and Bob, it's kind of funny because when we first came here, Bob was enjoying his wonderful new RV. Remember I told you I would have bought new if I could do it over again? So he's enjoying his wonderful new RV, and he comes to here and he sees that we're here, and he was a viewer that turned into a subscriber, that turned into an acquaintance, that turned into a friend, and now he's our landlord, and he charges us $0.00 per day as we're staying in his lavish basement that's better than our house was, but that's a whole nother story.
It's the basic RV specialist rate.
But I wanted to show you this because to show you that, you know, when somebody's watching our video on this lithium upgrade and they're going, well, how much did it cost? You know, and they want a number. You can't do that. Every rig is so different on what they have to work with. So let me walk around and show you how different the positioning is of everything on this rig, and you can imagine how difficult it is to compare the pricing of maybe doing this rig versus what you just saw in our video. So on this side, you have his battery control center, some on-off switch here. The LIBIM, which, you know, basically tells the charging system which batteries you're going to charge. You're going to charge your chassis batteries in the back, or you're going to charge, in my case, my house batteries in the front. Well, in Bob's case, his chassis batteries are in the back. So, Bob, do you know what this is?
It's solar charger, isn't it?
Oh, is it?
I think so.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go back one more bay. What's in this bay? Oh, this is your inverter.
That's the inverter.
So now you can see that Bob's inverter is back here. It's back from where his LIBIM is and his transfer switch. And back here is another bay that Bob has that he thinks that he wants to put another inverter in here. Now you can see his inverter started out in way better position than ours. Ours was buried way up in the rails, and ours was very close to where the batteries are, and now our inverter is literally right next to where the batteries are. That's very important in terms of your cable runs and everything. Now, if Bob puts a second inverter in here, it's going to be because he's got a bunch of lithium batteries that he has added. Let's go over to the other side here. Hey, Bob, could you take care of shutting those doors for me? And
I'll take care of it. Not a problem.
All right. Just remember, everything you talk about, we hear on camera, even though when you're out of camera. All right. So, what do we got over here, Bob? Is there anything? Oh, this is where the batteries are.
That's where the batteries are.
So,
or as they say in the battery business, this is where the magic happens.
Okay. Now you can see how different this is. You know, you're watching our video and you go, hey, I want one of them near lithium upgrades. Well, now look at how much more complicated things get. Where the batteries on, this is an Endeavor 2023 Holiday Rambler. And you can see the batteries are progressively stepping up. And Bob took perfectly good batteries that were lead acid out of here and put the Battleborns in because he wanted the usability and the charging profile and everything that goes along in this. But you'll notice that the engine is back here and all of that heat is cooking up these batteries. So depending upon where he's traveling, he might want to stay out of Vegas in the middle of summer
for several reasons.
Yeah, so he doesn't have some problem here. So Bob's batteries are on this side, and on the complete other side is where his inverters are. That presents some challenges. Over in this bay here, Sue, Bob has his chassis batteries, okay, and he snuck 2 of these battle boards in there. And I'm thinking because Bob's pockets are a lot deeper than the Chan Man's, he's thinking of stacking some more battle boards in here. And he's going to be investigating if he can mix game changers and regular ones, maybe stand that it's on its edge here, because his game is to get more than me. Okay, so to close this out,
Well,
Sue,
I have an electrical cable.
where's that?
That's right
in
there.
Here?
Yeah.
Okay, so your cable is hidden right here.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's behind the wall.
Okay, folks, can you tell this is a new rig? Look at, he doesn't even have any soil. We'll call it soil on this channel. He doesn't even have any soil in there. Look at how clean this is, you know?
And we got almost 7,000 miles on it so far.
Well, didn't you ever go to the bathroom? I mean, come on.
We clean this thing.
Wow.
What's that say about
Yeah.
you, Mark?
Yeah. Wow. All right. So we'll wrap up
when
by
you're married to Joy, everything stays clean.
So we'll wrap up by saying that on Bob's rig, everything is kind of in the back and on that side, and they'd be working on this side, and everything's kind of back there, and you're thinking, that's a good design. And it might be, except for one reason. You're always bridging over the engine, and the engine's in the way of working on feeding cables, where you put them, the trannies back there, the drive shaft, all sorts of stuff. So I don't know for sure, but that would present its own challenges. Now on our rig, all of our batteries were in our first bay. In our second bay, we could open it up, shimmy in there, and work on cables that if we had to run cables, we ran them along the channel and we dropped into a bay that was right before the rear tires. So we never were dealing with the transmission and the engine and that. So what's the point of this whole segment? The point of this segment is that if you're going to call up National Indoor and ask for Justin Townley and say, hey, I watched Mark and Sue's lithium upgrade and I'd like that, how much? What you're going to have to be prepared to do is maybe shoot some pictures to him, certainly tell him the year, make, and model, and you're going to have to be prepared to wait a while, that he can do some noodling. He can actually walk in his shop here because they've got pretty much everything known to man that they store, and they can give you a pretty good ballpark idea on what it's going to cost to do. But realize everyone is a one-off, and that might be why we're still here, because we thought we were ready to rock and roll a couple of times already, and we needed one more thing. And that's where we are now, because we're headed to the Tampa RV show, but we need that one more thing. All right, back to our regular programming. Okay, it's April 6th. We're here with Justin Townley, Service Department Manager at National Indoor. And I got to tell you, we're putting Justin in the hot seat here, but there's a reason for that. If you guys have been watching the channel for a while, you saw that we did 3 videos on our excellent lithium install. And I kept promising folks that I was not going to be that channel that would show you all that and get you interested in possibly doing it yourself and then not tell you how much it cost. So I patiently waited until we were back here at National Indoor. We're having our ceramic coating boosted. You'll remember about 6 months ago we had that done. So we're going to follow the rules and get that updated so that we have that protection. But we're taking advantage. Justin has come in on his day off, today's Saturday, to film this. We're going to try to keep it short. We've got lots of things we want to talk about, so let's get going here. Justin, you want to introduce yourself and tell them why you're as good looking and handsome as you are with your crisp shirt on compared to me all rumpled up here?
Well, my name is Justin Townley. I'm the service manager here in Atlanta, National Indoor RV Centers. I had started out very young in the Marine Corps as an electrical equipment repair specialist, and I did some manufacturing maintenance work after that time. So that's where I've kind of gotten my electrical background from, and I've taken many courses over the years on electrical.
So when I met Justin, you were actually, were you the foreman?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so he's pretty much did everything from the concrete to the roof to the front to the back on RVs. And you're like the perfect person to be working on things like this. And I'm really glad that National Indoor is kind of stepping up now to do these whole system upgrades for folks that normally have an RV that's much newer than what we have. We're a little bit an outlier here that took an older RV and upgraded it to lithium. But I tried to be true to our audience when I would tell them that I wish I could do over again my first battery renew when I put Lifeline batteries in, which were really good quality batteries, but nonetheless, I was setting myself up for having to do it again only about 3 or 4 years later, and the usability was really bad. Okay, so Justin brought up an important point about which RV do you have. I'm certain that when somebody calls you and they have a particular style RV and they want you to quote a renovation or renew, whether it includes their inverter and its batteries, or if it's even more complicated and it's solar, that there's probably some that are way easier to work on than other ones. Can you kind of go through what a customer should be prepared to give you in terms of the make and model of the rig and the length and how old things are, and they should, you know, talk about what their expectations are on what they want to operate. Do they want the RV to operate differently than it has in the past? And what I mean by that is when we had ours done, I tried to keep it as economical as possible, even though I knew I was stepping kind of into the rich man's world of upgrading my older RV by putting such a nice system in. I wanted to just have great power, safe, reliable, big capacity, but I knew that if I stopped at that point and didn't change wiring, didn't change fuse boxes, didn't change sub panels, that would, you know, keep it the cheapest for me.
It does, and it's very hard for me to stand back and over the phone try to estimate something like that.
Yeah.
When we get into changing loads, there can be a lot to it, and depending on which brand and which model it is, I mean that could really range, and what your expectations are. Mm-hmm. You'd want to know right up front as you're starting this exactly what am I trying to accomplish, right? If I'm just looking to extend the life of the existing system that I have so that I could boondock for longer, use it down to a 10% threshold versus these batteries that are cutting off at 40 or 50%, then the conversation is almost completely different, right? The majority of our focus is going to be on charging and just getting everything replaced and fixing it, putting it where it needs to go.
And that's pretty much what we had, right?
That's right.
Okay.
When we get into changing loads, we have to do a lot more load calculations, and we have to be very careful about it.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because we don't want to over-amp any of the circuits, and we certainly don't want to do it. We have to be cautious about things like if 2 air conditioners start at the same time, are we going to over-amp at that point or something along those lines?
Yeah.
And so we have to be a little more cautious about the way that we design it. Also, just physical location. In your Newmar, the majority of your electrical wiring is actually in that mid-bath. We can work inside of a closet more or less where nobody can see.
Yeah.
But if you went over to an Integra, the both electrical panels are sitting right over top of the driver's seat. And for me to be able to pull out of those and then put them someplace where somebody couldn't see, or if I have to adjust the loads in there, that adds some different difficulties.
when I see how complicated this type of work is, and I go out into your lot here and I walk around and I see all of the different vintages and all of the different brands, it's even, to me, it's kind of amazing that you guys can even step up to do this, because it's so different from coach to coach. And you know, it would be much easier if every one of your customers had an open checkbook, but that's just not the way it works. So how do you deal with that, where the customer wants, you know, kind of a ballpark on what this would be? And how long is it going to take that you do enough of these where you will be able to have really good ballparks? You're not there yet, right?
No, not by all means, no. As we get into them, of course, we learn on every single one.
Yeah.
And the motorhome industry and the manufacturers will change their motorhome almost every year. And so we will end up always kind of chasing the experience, because as you're going in, next year's models aren't going to be the same as last.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're working back to, on yours is 2014, right? So,
yeah,
you know, some of yours I can still do off of memory. But it's a little bit harder for me on some of the newer ones to just ballpark it off the top of my head, and because I don't even remember where everything's located.
Well, when we were talking about the open checkbook, I brought that up on purpose, because one of the things that always bothered me about going to some of the specialty RV places that will put solar in, when I look at their websites, I traditionally see fifth wheels, and I traditionally see trailers, where all of the work is done in that bay that's right underneath where the fifth wheel is. And so there's just piles of equipment in there, and it looks like it's a much more simple installation to just have everything right in front of your face and do all the wiring. And I thought, you know, I have enough respect for the complexity of my motorhome, and we like our motorhome enough, and we're counting on us to continue to be our magic carpet to take us places. With clear conscience, I couldn't go anywhere other than a place like National Indoor, or whatever RV repair place that you really trust. But nonetheless, that's the key. A place that is always working on motorhomes, that knows all of the complexities and the locations and the difficulties of running wires. This isn't like a house where you're just drilling holes in walls. You have no idea what's in them unless you have experience. You know.
And that is a key point. I mean, I would struggle probably just as much in a fifth wheel as somebody who works on fifth wheels every day would struggle in a motorhome, just because the familiarity of it and where wires are ran and where they need to be ran and that type of thing. So I definitely...
So I would imagine that when you're quoting this for customers, you, because of the caliper of the equipment that National Indoor sells, and I want to say it's basically ultra high end down to as low as the company feels comfortable with, that means that only certain inverter companies, only certain battery companies you will work with. And you kind of don't want to be involved with offbeat brands. Am I picking up on that correctly?
That is correct. We want somebody that we know that we can trust and that our customers can trust. We want to be able to stand behind our work. And so I don't, you know, I've seen a couple of, and I've had some inquiries on some batteries that were just purchased off of Amazon. I'm not familiar with the brand at all, you know. And we will be very hesitant to jump into something like that, because I'm not sure if those batteries will last, and if they're, you know, the potential for catastrophic failure is there. So
So it would be safe to say that you only want to be involved in a project where the project wasn't started by someone else. You want to start and finish it yourself, so that you feel more confident, it's safe, it's going to work, and it's got all reliable componentry in it.
That and the integration. You know, if we are integrating a couple of different functions, like in your case where we had Victron and we have the
Precision circuits and Lithionics.
And Lithionics especially. Being able to call Lithionics and talk to them about this, and actually they explained to us that yes, this integration will work correctly. The Victron will read out on this, on their screens and that type, or their batteries will read out on the Victron screens. That's kind of important. If we're going to try and do that integration, I'd like to start it from the beginning so I know everything's going to work together.
Is there any integration problems that are very tricky that people need to know that if they don't go to the right place, they're going to have problems with, I don't know, Spider, Firefly, what's the other one?
Silverleaf.
Silverleaf.
So Firefly and Spider, I've never actually talked to them to try to get them to write custom, but each one of those seems to be fairly custom. The Firefly system is written for that, an Anthem, 2019 Anthem, and Firefly themselves are the ones who write the software. So if I were to try to change any portion of that, there is not a preset program that will actually be able to take it. That would be something that if they were going to customize it, that would be a one-off that they would have to write. And Spider hardware is the same way. I've never asked Spider to step outside of the realm and actually do customization, and so I'm not sure how well that would go. Silverleaf is a little bit easier to do that with. Silverleaf themselves, the way that their system's written and everything, it's a little bit easier to modify, I think. So,
on some of these brands, you have to work with whatever you get, and you can't change settings and things.
Yeah, it would not without any, or not with the reliability that you'd want. In a lot of ways, it would be better to separate away from these some of the computer-controlled systems and have a standalone charging system, something that can be controlled separately, similar with yours. In your coach, they had originally come with its own Magnum panels that were separate and not integrated necessarily to some giant computer screen that's going to read out everything at once, and so that way. You didn't lose any integration from doing it. If we get into the newer coaches, taking the controls for the charging parameters and taking them completely away from Firefly and actually having them stand alone may be a better option.
So in our case, when I was doing a little bit of studying before I decided to come here and have it done, is I was worried about having to buy too much additional Magnum equipment to be able to work properly with other things, only to have my inverter that was already 10 years old die on me, which was a very old inverter, and have all this hodgepodge stuff all hooked together. And it would be different if it was all on a wall and I could just unbolt it and rewire it. But when there's wiring that goes through the walls and some things on cabinets with holes that are cut in your cabinet, I kind of wanted to start brand new. And that escalated the costs on our installation because before we were doing anything, I was replacing stuff that I already had. I had a state of charge control system that worked, but I wanted it to match what I was buying. So things that I had in place, I was renewing, but I didn't feel bad because that stuff was old enough, and you're best to replace something on your schedule rather than be in the wrong state near the wrong dealers and all of a sudden you have an inverter go.
So we got a lot of competition with the noise here. We got an airplane here, we got rigs in the back, we got rigs going by, we got a lift truck in back of us, and we got the air coming out of the building. But one of the reasons why I'm getting my inverter replaced before the inverter goes out on me is I want to be in a place like this when I decide that it needs to be replaced, so it can be done logically and by good qualified people. You can imagine, like, oh my God, well, how often does a person's inverter go? Well, you get about, 6 years out of it. Sometimes you're considered pretty lucky. And like this guy right here, I don't know how long his inverter was giving him trouble, but he's finally here having it done. I've got a Magnum. I've got 10 years out of it. I consider myself lucky. Knock on wood, it's still working, but in another week and a half, it's going to be yanked out of my rig and I'm going to replace it with a Victron. When an inverter goes out, it really, the functionality of your rig is really bad then, right?
It is. I mean, if you can't charge as well, I mean, you won't last long without.
Well, so they pulled in and provided me an opportunity. I've got a couple of shots in some of the videos where I show it sitting in the garbage back there, and there was actually 2 or 3 of them back there. That brings up a point. I hope people didn't think that this is the first time when we had our project that our project was a learning platform, and that's why we got a discount on not only the labor rate, but the amount of hours were capped. The National Indoor gave me all the equipment for cost. I had a reduced labor rate and I had a capped labor rate. It still cost me plenty, but we were able to work together, provide some great content. I got an awesome installation, and it's not as if National Indoor didn't do all this stuff 100 times already. It's just you didn't do 100 times where you were ripping everything out all at once and doing everything all at once. So that really was the only thing that we did, and plus we were trying to do it quickly. The woodworking that was done by Jim was so fast it made my head spin. And when we had a few parts issues where we were waiting on parts and everything, I actually felt bad for Jim because he did such a quick job, he did so fast, and then we slowed him down a little bit.
In preparation, you know, like we get kind of started off talking about is when somebody comes in, I would really like them to focus on know exactly what it is that you're trying to solve, the issue you're trying to solve. Mm-hmm. Bring that to us. If you tell me that you're trying to last longer, if you're trying to tell me that you're adding loads and everything, I can kind of calculate it around, mm-hmm. you know, what their goal is, and then also have a good solid number. In your mind of what's the top cap that you want to do. Mm-hmm. That will, you know, sometimes I need to adjust expectations as we go through these conversations, and rather it's we lower the amount of time that you would last, or you know, to try to save money, we can do that. Yeah. You know, we can have that back and forth. It doesn't have to be so set in stone of do it this way or not. Mm-hmm. There are different levels or variations that we can make to make it less expensive. You may sacrifice a little bit in time, but you know, we'll still be able to kind of accomplish the goals.
I guess in our case, and in the case I'm thinking of many people, you know, there are some people that can afford whatever they want, and then we all follow in underneath that. And Sue and I are at a point where we're kind of we're scraping by. We're not going negative, but we just wanted to renew and refresh what we had. And we were totally satisfied with the way our RV operated when it was plugged in. And we were progressively getting to the point where when it wasn't plugged in, it was less satisfactory. And it had nothing to do with boondocking or anything. It could have something as simple as the power went out and we didn't know about it. Right. And we'd be watching our TVs, and because, you know, there was no big demand on it, and then maybe we would first discover that the power was out when Sue would decide that she wanted to make a cup of tea, and we'd use our Keurig, and then we would trip the inverter. And we'd be like, well, what the heck? And then we'd look at our batteries, and now all of a sudden we'd see we were out of power, and now I wouldn't have enough batteries to last during the night with my CPAP machine. So then we had gotten to the point where I'd have to turn my refrigerator off, and as long as you don't open the doors, you don't lose many degrees. But that gets old pretty quick. And when you're full-time and you ask your wife and you say, hey, how long are we gonna do this? And you know, Sue would say, well, you know, I'm not at all sick of it. So then I think, well, okay, let's say we got another 5 years.
For 5 years, man, I don't want to be screwing around where every time I don't pay attention to something, I don't have enough power.
Right. Mark, I was in the backup generator industry after I got out of the military, and we always used to say that your backup generator works right up until there's a power outage. Right? And that is the reality. Is that, you know, you will everything will work perfectly right up until you really need it, and then there's some sort of a catastrophe, and of course, then
which is a good reason to maybe draw the line. You know, if you want to save on cost, draw the line at not reconfiguring your power panels. Yes, you will not be able to have the badge of honor to tell your friends that you can run your air conditioner on your batteries and rely on your generator for those times. You go to a harvest host, maybe before you go to that harvest host, say, hey, it's August, it's gonna be 100 degrees. Are you guys generator friendly? Trust me, most of the harvest hosts that we go to are generator friendly. And you can be a good customer by driving to the far side of that harvest host so that when your generator's running, granted, we have a very quiet generator. I do have to tell you that even today, if you buy your Newmar with the Lithionics, which are fantastic, super safe, sophisticated batteries, if you buy that one with the 3 batteries, and you can run one of the air conditioners, I believe, you can only run it for how many hours, do you know?
I don't. I haven't actually done the draw test to actually see how long it will last.
All right. Well,
but there is a limit.
Yeah.
And it's also, you know, the air conditioning is something that's very dependent, just like your refrigerator, it's just dependent on how warm it is outside. And so, you know, you set it to a temperature. You're not trying to just flat out run your air conditioner constantly. You set it to a temperature and it'll kick on and off periodically. And so, of course, the amount of times that it kicks on and off will kind of determine the amount of time that you could use it. And so it is different. You know, it's not a one-for-one necessarily where every coach with one air conditioner, I could just turn it on and run it for 6 hours straight. More than likely, it's going to kick on and cycle on and off.
So let's use the 6 hours on the Newmar, which I think is probably high. It might be more in the real world, might be more like 4 hours. Okay, and you've air conditioned. And now all of a sudden your batteries are getting lower. I think you have to look at it as that option only is useful at night. When you want to be quiet and it's still hot and you want to go through the night with your air conditioning, you would kind of save that bogey or that ability so that your air could be on at night. You know, you got to think about it right, that you're not going to be using your batteries to run your air conditioner normally during the day, because if you use up your batteries and now you're going into the night, now you've got problems with your refrigerator, your CPAP machine, and whatever else.
The only other advantage I see with adding the air conditioning on is being able to drive down the road with that extra air conditioner, because as you know, the dash AC can sometimes leave something to be desired.
You know, on our old 2014 Jalopy, we never run our air conditioning. The dash always does it.
Well, that's because you've been serviced at National Indoor RV Center.
Yes, yeah.
We don't have pets either, traveling with pets.
That's
true. Yeah, not having children, and you know, if you're right up there against that would make a difference.
Thank you for bringing that up, Sue. You might have hit on one of the biggest bonuses for someone to put a big enough lithium system in and going through the expense of, let's say, rewiring it just so that they can run one of the air conditioners is for their pets. And because we don't have pets, we don't think of that all the time. Now you could rely on your automatic generator start to be working, but typically pets are important enough to folks that they want that backup for their batteries when their batteries don't do this. So thanks for bringing that up, Sue. Can we talk in terms of generalities? And you can remember my installation. For someone that's not doing a video, somebody that's not getting a discount on the labor rate, somebody that's not getting all of their parts, you know, at cost. In ballpark numbers, are you prepared enough to just give people, you know, a pinpoint that they can put in so that if they're not comfortable with that number plus or minus, that maybe they should be looking at using somebody else or doing it themselves? I mean, there are plenty of people that either are smart enough to do it themselves or think they're smart enough to do it themselves. I was a little bit of both, but I certainly wasn't physically fit enough to do it. When I saw Matthew, how he was climbing around and doing different things, and if you watch our 3 prior videos, there's no way this 72-year-old could do that anymore. So.
Well, and even for me, I use Matt as my bald-headed stunt double, so he can jump in there and do things for me. And, you know, I'm not nearly as flexible as I used to be, but yeah, I've had a couple of people try to hit a price point that is something around $5,000 for an entire lithium system. That is probably not realistic for something that we would do.
Yeah, now I would say that's totally unrealistic, because with the motorhomes, you should be talking the big batteries, the fewest amount of the big batteries, not a whole menagerie of 100 amp hour batteries with cables all over the place. Right. And part of the beauty of using a place like this is that they can get rid of your battery tray normally, you know, if you have this kind of setup we have, and environmentally protect that area by refinishing it and everything. The batteries that we put in our rig, the Lithionics, top of the line, top safety, very sophisticated, very reliable battery that started out being made basically more for a government or industrial company usage. Those batteries are in the neighborhood of, you know, $4,500 list each, and we have 3 of them.
Right, and also we have to look at the age of the coach will make a difference. The Magnum that you had in there was not capable of doing. It was not a hybrid Magnum. It was not capable of hitting the voltages that were necessary for lithium batteries. So no matter what, if we get over to a certain age, it's going to have to be added. There are even today motorhomes built that I would not necessarily put lithium on their charging system. It's just not controlled enough, and it's not safe. And so, you know, we sell a few of them here that I would want to remove the charging system that's in it and actually change the charging system. That type of thing, I don't necessarily know until I get into one and actually look. And when working with Lithionics, one of the first things they did was they gave me a sheet that requires all the serial number or model numbers and serial numbers of all of the components that are going to be connected to it.
Yeah.
You know, meaning the charging system, the inverters, what are we going to use? They want to know everything so that they can have their own engineers take a look at it to verify that everything was going to work correctly together. And when we get into, of course, doing it that way, that has a little bit of a cost to it, but we're also paying for them to go in there as engineers and verify that what we're doing is correct and that everything will work correctly. And they will also stand behind the product doing it.
Yeah.
Almost.
Certain models lend themselves easier to do what we had done.
It does. I mean, your batteries being so close to the compartment that is actually heated by the Oasis system.
Yeah.
And, you know, your basement does have a vent that'll actually keep it above freezing, that'll kick on, provided the Oasis is on.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference. And you may lose some carrying capacity if we have to go into a bay to actually relocate batteries and that.
To rededicate a bay for
a different, batteries.
Yeah. And we all know how important it is to have your storage, so that's a big step to take. So, you know, as I've met people on the road, people have asked me, well, what it would cost if I had it done, my system. And I'm going to blurt out a number here. And $35,000 for what we had done. Heavens to Murgatroyd, to spend that much money and not be able to run your air conditioner. I would do it again in a heartbeat. It looks good, it feels safe, it looks safe. I'm not going to worry about having to do this again in 2 or 3 or 4 years, because 4 years is about all you're going to get out of AGM batteries. We don't worry at all about our power needs anymore. I could tell you our power has went off many times, and we don't know it until we go back and we want to throw a load of laundry in, and all of a sudden we can't turn the washer on. And we don't have any power. That's a good feeling. That makes it feel more like home to us. When you have 500, 600, 700,000 invested in your motorhome, we don't. We bought a used one, but to us it's still a $500,000 Dutch Star. To have all that availability and freedom to go places and do things, and then for me to not have the power on the times that become more and more frequent when you move like we do, and to always have that nagging feeling that you can do the wrong thing at the wrong time, we've erased that. So Justin, to wrap up here, what truly is the best way for the customer to get a good idea on what this would ultimately cost?
I think it's best that if I have the motorhome in front of us and we can actually go over the motorhome ourselves and take a look, let's see exactly what components will and won't work, and also have a conversation face to face about the expectations of what you're trying to accomplish. And I can change things up a little bit to try and meet your goals as well as keeping the cost down. But I think that is the best way, is that if I actually have the motorhome here, trying to do a quote over the phone, my memory only gets worse as I get older. So.
Okay. All right. So then it would be basically a two-step process, and what you described would just work best on people that are within a driving radius here, that are okay with cashing in on some of the free camping at National Indoor RV Center here, and camp here so that you can look at it, you can have a face-to-face conversation. They can drive into Atlanta and have a little sightseeing trip there, but then they would leave, and if you guys end up striking a deal, you would order the equipment, wait till it gets here, and then come and do the install. What does let's say they do that, the perfect customer, the perfect rig, you get all the parts, they come in, and now you're going to put it in. Our installation was very long and protracted because we were buying parts along the way as we were changing our mind, and I was always interrupting you guys filming. What is the worst case scenario time where they would need to leave the rig here? Because if they're full-time, they would be staying in a hotel. If they're not full-time and they're within driving range, they can drop the rig off and leave. But are we talking a week, 2?
I would say a safe estimate would be a 2-week period.
Okay.
But I more than likely would be less. For full-timers, of course, we try to make as much of an accommodation as we can, so that the times that the house is unusable, it's not going to be for the entire 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm glad he said 2 weeks, because that's what I would have said.
Yeah.
And only because Jim is so fast doing the renovation with the wood.
That's right.
All right. I think I got everything. We did good. It's a wrap.
All right.
And the audience.